Hi guys, how's it going? Ciara Heenahan here from Ciara Heenahan Consulting. I am an inner power educator and a life and business coach and mentor. And today I have the real pleasure of interviewing Ken Falconer. So Ken, thank you so much for spending your time and taking the time out to be here. How's it going?
It's going fantastic. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a beautiful day inside. Yeah, feeling good today.
Gorgeous. Where are you based, Ken?
I'm based up in Northern Ireland. I'm in County Antrim, up at the northwest coast.
Very good. It's beautiful. I'm glad to hear that it's as nice up there as it is down here. It's like 24 degrees. How could a person not be happy in this kind of weather?
It's so lovely. It's so lovely outside. It's beautiful. I've been this way for the past few weeks.
We're lucky. We could be really even more lucky and we could get it until the end of August and then nobody would really mind being stuck inside. So it'd be great. I'm very hopeful. So Ken, I'd like you to start off by telling me a little bit about yourself, who you are and what it is that you do.
Right. Who is Ken Falconer? Right. Okay. Ken Falconer. I was born in the local town here. I've never moved, born in the same place, grew up in the same place, and I worked to my father. Started off working to my dad, as most children do. There's always one in the family has to work to dad. Mm. So my dad had a factory and he made products for the construction industry, and he made precast concrete. So I worked to him for about 12 years, everything from being a joiner to actually mold making, to even lorry driving. So worked to him for about 12 years in the precast concrete factory. And then after that, I went on to site work. So still in construction, but now directly on sites. And come up through the site work as a foreman. I did leave for a short period after, maybe 5 or 6 years as a foreman. I went back into factory conditions for a big factory down in Portadown, and it was another precast factory. So I went down there as sales and marketing manager actually, and worked down there. But the site was still in my blood. Being on site, seeing things in a map, seeing things in a plan, and looking at it, and then building it and producing something you get the real buzz from it. So I went back onto sites and built a site down in Portadown for about 140 houses, and then eventually came back up to County Antrim again. So retired from site work probably about 4 years ago, totally, and retired at Director of Construction for Northern Ireland's biggest company, biggest private house builder. So construction all my life. Setting down foundations, building off those foundations and seeing a finished product. So that's what really excited me during my, I suppose, what I call my working life. Mm-hmm. Almost feel semi-retired now because I have left construction and I'm now a business and peak performance coach, and I coach other people with regards to emotional intelligence and emotional well-being. I actually did run a mental health clinic and still have that clinic in the local hometown of Larne, where I would specialise in depression, anxiety, and these type of emotional issues. So that's really who I am with regards to my work. Myself as a person, I'm a husband to lovely Denise. I have 4 boys. Didn't have any girls, but 4 boys who are all independent, thankfully, and they're all left the nest. So I've got the 4 boys, Robert, Philip, Andrew and David. The last ones were twins.
Brilliant.
And David was the only one that came into the construction side.
Okay.
Andrew, he owns a gym. My eldest son, Robert, he's a computer programmer. And Philip, he's in quality. So he's an inspector, quality inspector in factory conditions. So yeah.
Interesting to see how 2 of them went into 2 of your areas, one in construction and one in factory conditions. It's interesting to see when kids actually follow in their parents' footsteps. It's lovely.
Yeah, no, so yeah, that's really me in a very, very brief synopsis of who's Kenny Falconer, I suppose.
Well, something I wanted to touch on that you said, which I find really interesting, is you talked about laying foundations being part of what you did in construction. And then you talk about being a peak performance coach. So it's literally the two opposite ends of the scale. You learn to lay foundations, and you're a peak performance coach. So they're literally, one is below and one is above. Would you say that when you're working with your clients now, would you say that that's what you're doing when you have people with you? Would you say you're helping them lay foundations so that they can reach their peak?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the stronger and the deeper and the better those foundations, the bigger you can build off them. Now, some of the projects I was on, we sent piles down through the ground, and we sent the piles down maybe 25, 35 metres into bedrock around Belfast City. But for a house, you would only maybe have a shallow foundation because that's enough to support that smaller structure. So really, really depends on the depth and the structure of that foundation, what you can actually build off the top of it. So for me, foundation is the basis for personal development. The foundation is the start. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot. Something else that popped up as you were talking about things there is the balance element of things. I'd love if you would talk a little bit to me about what balance means to you.
Right, balance is it's a holistic view, and it's an overall view of life. Let me explain that probably a wee bit better.
Brilliant.
Every action that we do, every action we perform is going to have a ripple effect throughout the rest of your life. And it's like throwing a pebble into a pond, and the ripples start. Well, what side of the pond is it going to touch? The ripple will eventually touch every side of the pond. And even with regards to myself and the transition from constructor of buildings to constructor of minds, one of the things I did, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, Ciara, and this is very maybe important to say, as I was coming up through construction industry, I didn't have what we call emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence, it's a fancy word, but it basically just means how we act and react to outside stimuli. And how we act and react to the outside stimuli depends on who we are from the skin backwards. Okay, so who we are from the skin backwards is really dependent on our upbringing, our belief systems, or values, or morals, all these things that our parents would instill into us at a young age. And I suppose at a young age, I was being brought up, and I was brought up very well by very good parents, strict parents. Remember, I'm an old guy compared to you. I'm 57 now. And, you know, my values, my morals, my beliefs were administered probably more kinesthetic than maybe the modern families. So, you know what I'm saying.
I get you. I had the same.
So, you know, you get that slap, you get it kinesthetically administered. And all we're doing is getting checked.
Yeah.
Okay, but the learnings from that is where I got my values, my morals, my beliefs, all those things that your parents want to instill with all their kids.
Okay, very good.
And when that happened at a very young age, there's something fantastic. You tend to hold them for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter how they were administered, but you tend to hold on to them values and beliefs, because they're actually, if you want to use the word programmed, they're actually programmed into your subconscious mind as belief systems and behavioral ways that you're to behave. So my behaviors were quite good. How I was taught those behaviours was probably dubious. Certainly at the time.
The odd wooden spoon came into contact with the odd elbow.
Yeah, we had those. So looking back on that, I had a belief system. Mm-hmm. And what had happened, and you've probably heard in construction that there was this massive boom. Well, I got involved in that boom, Ciara. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, I was buying properties that I couldn't really afford to buy. Because what we were doing, we were buying properties on the strength of a rental value.
Okay.
Now, we had lots of people, we had taxi drivers in my hometown buying properties and became property investors. We had people who were unemployed who were able to get mortgages.
Incredible. And
have houses. So there was a lot of people were buying houses. Some of them probably shouldn't have been allowed near them. Mm-hmm. There was other people who were in the construction industry and thought it was okay. We never ever thought the bubble would burst. And that's the important part, I suppose. We never thought the bubble would burst. Mm-hmm. I was building houses, and at the time they were about 62 to 65,000. By the time I got the keys for the house that I was building, it was now up 75, 78,000. And that was from me pouring the foundation till actually handing myself the key. Now that was massive. So what I did immediately was remortgaged it. Mm-hmm. And put deposits down for 2 more houses. And okay. That's what we did. Uh-huh. So when I suppose the downturn, the recession came 2007, 2008, I found myself in a very difficult position. The difficult position was that all my houses were now in negative equity. I wasn't able to sell any of them to turn over enough money to generate the payments for my mortgage.
Okay.
And even though I had a fantastic job, even though I had a fantastic life at work, privately, I was collapsing. Privately, I just felt worthless. Now, what happens when you take that feeling of guilt and worthlessness upon yourself? Because remember, I'm a family man. I have a wife that I love to bits. Mm-hmm. I have 4 kids that I had. I couldn't even come home from work because I was ashamed to come home from work. I was ashamed to look at my wife in the eye, taking her down the same journey that I was going to have to come down. Mm-hmm. And I stayed at work. Now, I became more and more successful at work. Mm-hmm. And that was fine on that side. Internally, I had a lot of turmoil. I had a lot of guilt. I was a terrible father. I was a terrible husband. Behaviourally, my behaviours were getting a bit ropey as well. And certainly one of those behaviours was not coming home during working nights and staying late. So I was missing family life. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the ripple effect earlier. Yeah. Well, there's the ripple effect.
100%.
And it was starting to show itself. It was starting then to change my perceptions of life. I was looking back, and there's one thing that when you're brought up to be a certain person and you're brought up with those morals and all, I then started to judge myself quite badly.
Okay.
And it took on a lot of guilt, and to the point I was considering just ending my life. It came to that point.
Okay.
Now, at that point, it's probably about 10 years ago. That made me so angry. That made me so angry. And I was never an angry person. And that anger shocked me. And the thoughts came through my head, how can you even think these thoughts? And there was a massive conflict in my head. Now, of course, no one ever wants to do themselves harm that way. They just want the pain to go away. They just want the pain to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to bring that into my head as an option, that was a very, very interesting time in my life, because that's where I changed completely. Because that anger was enough to, it was almost like a pattern interrupt. It just, bang. Yeah. It just stopped me at that point. Mm-hmm. And I started to look around, and you know what? It wasn't just me. There was hundreds of thousands of people the same as me. There was loads of people who had taken a gamble and it failed. There was loads of people who were feeling guilty and down. There was loads of people who were working hard and successful but still had issues in their private life. Mm-hmm. And that's where my life completely changed. So I changed at that point. I didn't have any emotional intelligence, which is quite funny because that's exactly what I do now. Yeah. It's to help. There's an expression out there that be the person who you wished was there for you.
Yeah, I love it. It's a beautiful expression.
That's such a lovely expression. Mm-hmm. And I have now become the person who I wished was there for me.
That's beautiful, Ken. And it's very powerful. Very, very powerful. And something that you said actually when you were speaking there about you became super successful at work and you didn't come home, and you knew that was one of your bad behaviors. You knew that was something that wasn't fitting right and rightly towards you. And the fact is, there are so many people who do that. They bury themselves in the thing that they're successful in order to not have to look at any other area. And I suppose putting a name on it and actually bringing awareness to it, which is something that you do, is really, really important, because so many people do it. And it's understanding, looking at it as a bad behavior. It's a piece of yourself that's not normal, that isn't, normal is not the right word, that isn't you. And so why are you doing this thing? What are you running away from? What are you stopping yourself from looking at? Mm-hmm. And when you do that, when you do look at that thing, whatever that thing is, it's really eye-opening to get to the other side of it. And I suppose that's where you come in and you help people.
Yes. You know, a lot of people in business are going through exactly the same, even at the moment, Ciara, with this corona. Mm-hmm. The whole virus, people have been in lockdown, people are now apprehensive, firstly about going back to work, because we've been told to stay in and save lives. And that has been stuck into our program for the last 2 months. Mm-hmm. And now we're saying to people, no, it's safe, come on out again. And some people aren't believing it just at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while. So, you know, we tend to program and allow ourselves to be programmed in that way. Yeah. And because of my belief systems that were programmed into me, which were morally correct, I just felt inadequate. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel as if I was good enough. And the other thing is, when you're being brought up, I suppose, by very strict religious background parents, there's quite a lot of guilt actually administered there at the time, because you're never good enough.
Oh, there's so much religious guilt. It's not even funny. And it's a thing that we don't learn. We don't learn religious guilt. It's put upon us in a way that you can't even explain. And it's part of your DNA at such a deep level. And you find yourself feeling it in moments that are like the craziest, weirdest moments ever. And when you catch yourself, and I do this all the time, and I'm like, oh my Lord, that has to be the Catholic guilt. It's in deep. It is in deep. Yeah. And I wouldn't be religious, but it's there.
Yeah. And when that is administered to us when we're younger,
yeah,
we tend sometimes to take on the feeling that we're not good enough. Mm-hmm. And I suppose growing up, always felt slightly inferior, maybe, and I needed almost approval.
Okay.
Even when I was at the top of my game in construction, I still needed approval. I needed people to tell me I was doing a good job. I didn't have it internally. So I needed what we call as an external frame of reference. Mm-hmm. I needed people externally to tell me that I was doing a good job. Now, I know we won awards for sites, and I got awards for building, and they were coming in, and they did give you the lift. But isn't it terrible that some people just have this inside them all the time?
Yeah.
And this is what stops successful businessmen becoming more successful. This is what holds them back. And this is what I do now with the whole coaching side of business owners. Allowing them to see themselves, their true potential. And you need to know who you are before you can go somewhere.
100%.
You need to know where you are right now. It's like you bring out your phone and you're going to go to Google Maps and you're going to set it to go to Dublin or Letterkenny or whatever. The first question that they ask is, what's your
Where are you?
Where are you now? I'll tell you how to get there, but you need to know, where are you right now? So I had to learn where I was right now. And when you know, and this is where the whole self-awareness comes in, when you're aware where you are right now and you have a goal or a focus out in front, well then we can fix that part in between. Because where you're going to go is a matter of taking the right decisions, and when you make the right decisions you will get success. The problem is, why are you not going on that road? What's holding you back?
I have a good question for you, actually. And it's something that'll be interesting to get a male perspective on. So I went to a talk with this incredible woman called Gillian Harford. She is the head, or was the head of biodiversity in AIB, I think. And she talked about a thing for women called the princess syndrome. And it was really interesting, right? And she said that women have a tendency to need to be validated, externally validated, before they're willing to actually take the next step. So we're looking for somebody to say, maybe somebody who's higher up than us, to say, okay, you're good enough so that you can move forward. She also said that what women have a tendency to do is, if you read an article in a paper or an advertisement for a job, and the job advertises 7 specific skills, and you only have 4 of them, you won't go for the job as a woman because you feel that you're not good enough. But a man will go for it even if they only have a couple of skills, because there's a different level of I don't know what in it. So when you're talking about a businessman being successful, what are the differences that you would see between men and women when they're coming at this emotional intelligence and this level of, I suppose, the idea of success?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Have you got 5 hours for this one?
We got time. We got nothing but time. We're locked in.
Right. Okay. Firstly, let's go back to programming. Okay. Women especially are more prone to fitting in than guys. Guys can be a wee bit rougher around the edges. They have maybe a wee bit more carefree quite often. And this is because of the way we're controlled externally. You have all the magazines, you have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain size, you have to be a certain shape, you have to, and you need to fit in before you feel that you can go ahead the next step. You know, I've heard women, I work out of a gym. I don't work much in the gym, but I work out of a gym. And I hear quite a lot of women saying, you know, no, I lose a couple of stone and then I'll join the gym.
Yeah.
No, join the gym to lose the couple of stone. You've got it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
and quite often, women, more so than men, would have this perception of where they should be before they're accepted. And that's quite sad that society has done that to us, to women especially. You know, if you were to show women that where they are right now is good enough, that where they are right now, the way they stand, who they are, the way they look is good enough. How many hairdressers, beauticians, nail bars would all go out of work?
Yeah.
You know, and we're almost in a society where women seem to mask themselves slightly more than men. Certainly with regards to hair. You know, women will do their hair once a month. Men, we have no option, we just have to let it go. So we just let that part go. I've got no hair, so what? But yet then there's maybe other guys, it's very, very important for them to actually get hair on their head. So it's really our perception. But in the business world, women hold themselves back by not allowing themselves to come forward. And that's important to see, and it's important to know. There's so many women should be in better jobs than they are right now if they were to have that confidence and that belief that they are truly, truly equal.
So would you say then, gosh, look where we are, I love this. Wow. Would you say then that it is very much a case of personal responsibility? But on the back end of that, it's very much about reprogramming.
It's all personal responsibility. It's all choice.
Yeah.
It is all choice, but that choice is dependent on how we feel.
Yeah.
Okay?
And that goes back to the program.
That goes right back to the program. That goes right back to your perception of who you are. And if your perception of who you are is not strong, if your perception of who you are is someone who doesn't deserve, if your perception of who you are is someone, well, I get enough to do, things are hard, things are tough. If that's what's in your head and your perception of life, well, are you going to get more than just enough? Really? Do you deserve more than just, I'll get enough to do? And these are belief systems.
100%.
And this is the whole emotional intelligence side. It's the beliefs that we have, because Ciara, you know that when we make a decision and we take action, we will get a result.
100%.
It's the most simple thing in the world. If you copy someone who is successful, you will get the same results as them. That's why reinvent the wheel. If you want to model yourself, do what they do, and you know what? You'll probably get the same results. In fact, more than probably.
It'll happen.
So what stops us from making those decisions? And this is the other background. This is the other bit in the background of us. And that's where I was. Okay, that's where I was, because I didn't have any of this at that stage. I buried my head in the sand completely.
Okay.
I felt as if the whole world was on top of me. I felt everybody was shafting me. No, they weren't. I chose to let them make me feel that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't personal to me. And there's a big learning, I suppose. Nothing in life is personal. If anybody who's listening can take that away from today, nothing in life is personal. And how people treat you, here's number 2 learning, how people treat you.
I love it.
How people treat you is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them.
Yeah. I think those are 2 massive learnings, actually. Massive.
And, I have a good friend, and we were doing a bit of coaching work together, and he's telling me about expectations. And you know exactly who we're talking about. We're talking
I do indeed.
Yeah. I'm talking about the expectations. And when we hold expectations for other people, we have just given up our power. When you have 0 expectations, well, then you have full power, you have full empowerment.
Yeah.
So the job, the task will be done. Someone will do it. But when you hold expectations and you expect it to be done by a certain person and they fail, well, you're going to change your emotional stance, aren't you? Yeah. You're going to feel a bit of frustration. You're going to feel a bit of anger. Take away the expectation.
And you get the opportunity to breathe.
Yeah, and just, it can be done.
Yeah. It
can be done. And if that person's not going to do it, don't let them get you angry. Delegate it. I used to have this with guys on site. And one thing I didn't like, and I did not allow it, was basically people who told me lies. Because people who tell you lies they're called liars.
Mm-hmm.
And what do liars do? They'll tell you lies.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's that simple with me.
Yeah.
And I would maybe have tradesmen who would promise me that they would come in to work to do a particular job, subcontractors. On the strength of what they're telling me, I will make promises down the line.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
When I make those promises and they are not fulfilled, what happens? It's me.
Yeah. And that's that ripple effect in a negative.
So that's the negative ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to stop that very, very quickly. So I always got my guys to tell me honest, bad news.
Yeah.
If you can't make it, if your van didn't start, if whatever, tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll sort it out in the background. Don't worry.
Yeah.
In the sense that, okay, if you're an hour and a half late, at least I haven't got 5 men waiting for a load of timber to come onto site.
Exactly.
If it's not coming in to 12 o'clock, that's okay. I'll allocate them guys to somewhere else. But for me to give promises on the strength of other people's promises,
mm-hmm.
I could never do that. So I would change my staff simply because of something like that.
I like that though. That shows a real level of high standards and high value. And I think that's something that people tend to struggle with. I'm not sure whether it's just an Irish thing. I'm not sure whether it's a business thing. So when somebody tells you a lie and you're there for the lie and you don't do anything on the back end of the lie because you don't want to create a negative effect, or you don't want to offend somebody, or you don't want to step on somebody's toes, essentially what you're saying is you're not lifting your own standards and you're not being true to your own values. Mm-hmm. But when you do live up to your own values and you do hold high standards, it can piss so many people off in so many ways. And it's only because their standards and their values aren't high and they haven't looked at them themselves and their programming is different. So it really feels like when you're talking and you're saying these things, you're talking about lifting consciousness and lifting values and lifting standards and understanding that if something doesn't feel right to you, then you're allowed to act on it. You're allowed to say it's not okay.
And that's where we went back with the sort of zero expectations. Mm-hmm. Yes, I did expect them to come in, but I wasn't going to allow it to upset me.
Yeah.
If they were the right person, as I said, someone else will do it. So I would get another squad who would do it.
Yeah.
And guess what? They did it every time because they knew consequences.
Yeah. Your reputation was preceding you. I like it.
Yeah. And when we keep things simple in business, when we keep things simple in life, it becomes so much easier. We just have to keep things simple. Like even my logo, like so simple. Look at that as a logo.
Love it. Yep.
It's the impossible triangle.
Yeah.
And
cool.
So simple. It's a triangle, but it took me about 2 months to organise and design.
The joys of tech.
Look, I just couldn't get it right.
Tell me something, Kenny. What are you running at the minute? What are you doing at the minute that you're bringing your genius to people and to the people who need it? What are you up to right now?
Right. Well, at the moment, because of the lockdown, I've been doing a lot of voluntary work locally.
Okay.
I've left my calendar open and people have been booking in, and I have been talking to people who are finding things, they're quite anxious during this lockdown at the moment. So I've been doing that. I'm also running a workshop, an emotional well-being workshop. It's been going for the last 6 weeks, and that's one that I put on. I'll probably have a rest of about a month and then redo it again. Mm-hmm. It was hands-on, but now it's an online course, and I have done it in Australia. So, I'm doing it all around the world, that particular work course. I'm actually writing a book.
Brilliant.
It started off as an ebook. I think we talked about this before. It started off as an ebook, but it's sitting up at 18 or 19,000 words at the moment. So it's not an ebook anymore.
The world's biggest ebook.
And I'm collaborating with other coaches, including yourself.
Brilliant. Yeah.
With regards, we're putting out a project. Can we mention it in this?
Of course you can. You can mention whatever you want.
So it's the RAISE project. It's under Your Holistic Academy, and it's under the umbrella of the Fluid Human. So we're actually doing the RAISE project.
It's a fantastic
I'll not use this space to promote it much more, apart from put the name in there. And please, people, when they see this, just ask what it is, and we'll give you all that information.
And tell me this, how can people get in contact with you if they want to do your 6-week program, or if they want, to come and have a chat with you, maybe one-on-one? How do people get in touch with you? Right,
simple. Just write in Ken Falconer into Google. I'll pop up on the front page in all the Googles.
Perfect.
If you look at kenfalconer.com, and if you look in social media, I'm there in LinkedIn, I'm there on Facebook. Instagram I haven't got the hold of yet. I'm there, but I'm not.
Me too. Me too.
I need a wee bit more education with the likes of the Instagram and those other ones.
We'll find someone.
But you will find me. Just simply type in my name into a search engine and you will see me.
Brilliant. So I like putting people on the spot. I would love to know, is there a message or a quote that you would like to leave people with before we finish? Something that they can take with them today that might change their worlds or change a piece of their world?
Really, keep it simple.
I love it.
It's simple. A lot of people get bogged down in the deep, deep stuff. With regards to your self-awareness, a wee bit of self-reflection. And if we can look, well, one thing I'm going to say, words of wisdom then. No one is afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what might be in the dark.
Very good.
Okay, there's words of wisdom from Ken Falconer.
I love it.
No one is afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what might be in the dark. And no matter where you are in life, no matter where you are in business, whether you're personal development or whatever, the things that hold you back is going to be a fear of some sort. It's going to be a fear of some sort. So rather than looking at why you're not doing it, find the reason. Find the why behind why you're not doing it. So no one's afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what might be in the dark. So what's in the dark for you?
I love it. And that is simple.
It's as simple as that.
Very good.
I'm not going to take it any more than that, but keep it simple.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat. It was very, very insightful, and hopefully you will get some calls and some messages from people who no doubt will have resonated with a whole lot of what you've said. So I really appreciate your time, Ken. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for having me on.
My absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Take care.
Right, bye.